Hello everyone, welcome to this SELCS Virtual Open Day. My name is Cristina Massacessi. I'm a Senior Teaching Fellow in the Italian department at SELCS. I teach film studies and sequential art, and for this very brief presentation I will show you how you can read a film image using some basic concepts taken from what we call mise-en-scène. That is to say, the arrangement and the organization of all the elements that you can see on the screen at any given moment. Mise-en-scène is a very wide and complex area of study. It involves very diverse things such as lighting, the position of the actors, the camera angle, the use of costumes, but today we'll just discuss very briefly three of these many different concepts: setting, costume, and one basic camera angle. Let's go! The first concept I would like to introduce to you is that of setting. Setting is a very immediate and important factor in our appreciation of a film. When you start watching a film, the first thing you notice is the setting. Where does the film take place? Setting can give us some clues about the genre of the film we're about to watch, whether it's going to be science fiction, a western, a horror film. Sometimes setting is a little bit ambiguous, so perhaps you think you're going to watch a western film, but it turns out to be a musical, or a science fiction film turns out to be something else completely different. But it's usually a very good indication of the kind of film we're about to watch. The other aspect that it's important in setting is the fact that setting can channel some of the psychological issues and aspects that the filmmakers want to introduce in their films. So it can give us some clues about the psychological state of the characters, or some ideas about overarching themes in the film. So the image I've decided to use for setting is taken from a very old film, which is considered to be the first example of German expressionism. The film is called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It was made by Robert Wiene in Germany in 1920, and it's a groundbreaking film. If you take a look at the image, you'll immediately notice that we have a combination of two different things. A setting that is completely fake and painted with a real actor at its center. So the film is about nightmares and reality, and how reality and nightmares sometimes get entangled, and it becomes very hard to draw a line between them. So the use of a painted setting where a city scene is reproduced with crooked lines and in a very unnatural way conveys this idea that the film has some sort of nightmarish atmosphere. You can notice some details, for instance, the light reflected by the lamppost that is very spiked and kind of brutal. There's a little fountain in the background that again is very crooked. Some windows that are kind of funnily shaped. So everything conjures up this atmosphere of fear, tension, horror, this kind of nightmarish reality. So one thing that you can do with setting is to take a look at it and see how natural or unnatural it is in terms of reproducing reality. And from there, you can actually draw some conclusions or make some hypotheses about the contents of the film and the kind of psychological atmosphere of the film you're about to watch. The second concept I would like to introduce to you is that of costume, makeup, and hair. They kind of all go together. Costumes are obviously very important. They tell us something about, again, the genre of the film we're about to watch, but then again, we can use costumes in a kind of counterintuitive way. But also, costumes combined with, for example, the background of an image can also provide the viewers with some indication of the kind of psychological state of the character or characters. In order to explain very briefly this concept to you, I've selected a beautiful screenshot from Marie Antoinette, the film made by Sofia Coppola in 2006. The film is a biography, it's a historical film, it's a reconstruction of the life of Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France. The style of the director, although it's very unusual, because if you know the film, you'll know also that there are some nudges towards modernity. The soundtrack includes a lot of rock and pop music, so it's a very unusual film in the way it approaches historical reconstruction, and it plays around the idea that what we're actually watching is a reconstruction, it's not real. So there's an intervention on the part of the director. One of the most significant images from this film is the one I've selected here. We see Marie Antoinette, who's just received a letter from her mother, who's kind of going through a very difficult phase in her adaptation to the French court. There's a lot of expectations around her. She's supposed to give a heir to the Kingdom of France. She hasn't done that yet. So everyone is kind of putting pressure on her to perform her duty as a queen. So the way Sofia Coppola tries to convey the pressure and dismay and desperation of Marie Antoinette at this stage of her life is by giving her a costume, a beautiful floral costume, and placing her against a background that is very, very similar to the decoration on the costume. This is a very simple trick, but it does achieve a very important result. We almost see Marie Antoinette getting sucked in and absorbed by her environment. This gives us the sense that she is not free. She's under pressure, she's surrounded by expectations, and she cannot really cope with them very well. So by using a costume that it's very similar to the background, the director gives us a clue about the distressed psychological state of Marie Antoinette. So it's a beautiful image, a very interesting way of conveying something about the psychology of the character. The last image I selected, it's taken from a film by my favorite director. You may guess that I have a bit of a soft spot for Stanley Kubrick. I've used an image from 2001: A Space Odyssey for the opening slide, and for this last slide on camera angles, I've decided to use an image from The Shining, a film that you may know. Camera angles are a very fascinating area to explore. There are almost infinite variations, and you can go from basic camera angles, which means that somehow the director is replicating a point of view that we can achieve by looking at things. And there are also extreme camera angles that are a little bit unusual, and that reproduce what it's called sometimes a bird's eye view or a worm's eye view. So things are not as natural or easy to reproduce by looking at things naturally with our own eyes. The basic camera angle basically means that you're looking at something straight on. It's at your eye level. So it's the most basic camera angle of all, because it's also the most common way of looking at things. We look at things at an eye level, straight on angle. But the interesting thing about camera angles is that we can exploit them to create and enhance the atmosphere in the film. Kubrick is very good at doing that, using a basic camera angle in The Shining. It's a very famous moment, the moment when Danny, the small protagonist of the film, encounters the two ghost sisters who live in the Overlook Hotel. They're looking straight at us, unblinking. They're there, they're blocking our path. We feel that we cannot go anywhere because there's nowhere to go. The perspective in this film, which is also very typical Kubrick perspective, is similar to the one in the opening slide, gives us a sense of enclosure. We feel that we cannot escape from the glare that these two little girls are giving us. Also, we feel very defenseless because we are looking straight ahead at two little girls, and we're assuming the perspective of a very young child. So we feel that we really need protection. We feel very exposed, very vulnerable to the kind of malice and evil intentions that these two figures may have towards us. So by using a very basic placement of the camera, the most basic of all, as I said before, Kubrick is actually achieving a very terrifying moment in the film. So that was the end of my brief presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it, and perhaps now you're a bit curious about finding out more on mise-en-scène and how to read the film. I hope to see you soon in a non-virtual environment at UCL, and thank you very much for your attention.